Trump leaves for Asia trip. Bombers over South Korea. U.S. Navy says its Pacific Fleet has problems. Trump makes new threat against North Korea. We have one problem. That's called North Korea, Trump told Fox News' Laura Ingraham in an interview that aired Thursday evening. A day before he leaves on an 11-day swing through the Pacific region. If we don't solve it, it's not going to be very pleasant for them. It's not going to be very pleasant for anybody. Trump to Asia. The NYT's Mark Landler writes that the president boards Air Force One Friday weekend and scandal-scarred, ready to face off against newly empowered Chinese and Japanese leaders in a region increasingly determined to set its course without American direction. But Mr. Trump's erratic statecraft, compounded by the shadow of the Russia investigation, leaves him in a questionable position to extract concessions from Mr. Xi, or even allies like Japan and South Korea. The South Koreans may actually draw closer to the Chinese after settling a dispute this week over the rollout of an American anti-missile system. Bombers over South Korea. 2 US B-1B bombers flew over South Korea on Thursday, joining Japanese and South Korean jet fighters in what the U.S. Pacific Command said was a planned maneuver and not in response to any current event. North Korea's state media said the flyover is aggravating the situation of the Korean peninsula and seeking to ignite a nuclear war. Trump says running out of time on North Korea. The president recognizes that we're running out of time to deal with North Korea and will ask all nations to do more, White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster told reporters at a briefing on Thursday. McCain says enough, but does he mean it? During a hearing Thursday to vet several Trump administration nominees for top Pentagon jobs, Senator John McCain, of Arizona, said he was tired of seeing defense industry executives go to work in the Pentagon. But he indicated he'll support the Mark Esper, chief lobbyist for Raytheon, the fourth largest defense contractor in the United States, for Secretary of the Army, telling Esper his concerns grew out of early consultations I had with the administration about potential nominations, including yours. McCain added that it was then that I decided I couldn't support further nominees with that background, beyond those we had already discussed. Lots of defense industry execs already at work. But at least one more will soon pass through McCain's Senate Armed Services Committee, however. At some point in the coming weeks, John C. Rood, Senior Vice President for Lockheed Martin International, will testify for the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy job, the third highest position in the Defense Department. The Senate has already approved former Boeing executive Patrick Shanahan to be Deputy Defense Secretary, the second highest position in the Pentagon, and Ellen Lord, the former Chief Executive Officer of Textron Systems, to be Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition. Navy might file charges. In the wake of two deadly accidents earlier this year that took the lives of 17 U.S. Navy sailors aboard the USS Fitzgerald and the USS John S. McCain, the service is considering filing charges against some of those involved. Speaking with reporters at the Pentagon Thursday, Admiral John M. Richardson, Chief of Naval Operations, said we found that the commanding officers were at fault, the executive officers were at fault, there were watchstanders on the ships, and we have been pretty clear about identifying where there was fault and taking appropriate accountability actions. Navy personnel don't know how to drive ships. Navy Times notes that there's a common thread between both the destroyer Fitzgerald's collision in June and the McCain collision: a lack of training on key equipment and a weak understanding of ship operating fundamentals, which ultimately led to failures that killed in total 17 sailors. Pacific Fleet a mess. Both accidents occurred in the Pacific Fleet, which a Navy report detailing the mishaps describes as deeply flawed, with crews lacking basic seamanship skills and unable to respond to crisis situations. U.S. general confined at Gitmo. You read that right. a U.S. military judge ordered Marine Corps Brigadier General John G. Baker confined to his quarters for 21 days at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, over a legal dispute in which the general refused to comply with the judge's orders. The judge held Baker in contempt of court after he allowed the three attorneys representing Abd al-Rahim al-Nashiri, a Saudi citizen accused of leading the deadly USS Cole bombing in October 2000, to quit the case after they said the U.S. government spied on them while discussing legal strategy. And the lawyers told the Miami Herald Thursday they're prepared to refuse the judge's order a second time. Russia and by hour. Here's a strange story dug up by Defense News detailing how a small story on RT about an obscure U.S. Air Force contract solicitation, and how it led to Russian President Vladimir Putin to tell an audience that the U.S. government is building bioweapons to use against the Russian. Round 2. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin may get a second meeting on the margins of the APEC summit in Asia next week. Kremlin officials say they're currently in talks with the White House about setting up a second meeting between the two following their first encounter at the G20 meeting in July. Chemical weapons. The U.S. and Russia are sparring over the future of the UN single-quote chemical weapons investigation in Syria following a report by investigators concluding that the Assad regime was responsible for using nerve agent against the village of Khan Sheikhoun,